Good evening and welcome. A little later than usual. Apologies for that. We've got the technical gremlins sorted and it's a busy show tonight. Busy one. Lots to discuss as we take on the league leaders Grimsby Town at Blundell Park on Saturday. 4 points from Stockport and Bromley. Now our biggest test to date at Grimsby, a sellout 7,000 crowd. In part two of the show tonight, we welcome Alex from the DN35 podcast to give us the inside track on all things Grimsby Town. It's been an eventful year or two for them as well as ourselves. Not too long ago, there's a guy called Alex May, remember him? Tried to buy both our clubs as well as Chesterfield, aka the convicted fraudster. The convicted fraudster, Alec Capicania. Thankfully, he hasn't got any of the clubs. And ironic now that Chesterfield, Grimsby and Notts find ourselves all pushing to get back into the Football League. Tonight, we will reveal how May or Capicania was unmasked and how our former owner, Alan Hardy, claimed he was going to be the new chief exec of Grimsby Town. You've had a lucky escape there, lads. You honestly couldn't make it up. We'll be discussing that and more in part two. Both clubs now happy under their excellent new ownerships. Anyone for tennis? A new development on land to the rear of Notts County's COP stand announced this afternoon. And in the first half of the show, we'll be having Leigh Curtis. Hopefully, he's having a few technical gremlins, as you can see on the show. We will be assessing a more aggressive, a faster tempo Notts approach in the game so far this week. Manager Ian Birchinall admits his team had been, in his own words, a little passive. And a controversial one, already sparking quite a lot of debate. Where do we need to improve the most? Up front or at the back? 5th highest scorers in the division, 11th worst comes to conceding goals. Fair to say that Leigh and I have a difference of opinion on that one, although what do those opinions matter? But it's all lively debate, plenty of questions coming in and observations. Phil Buxton starts the show after the Lord Mayor's show came Bromley, played okay, but saw the tippy-tappy creeping back in. Unless we're 7-0 up with 2 minutes to go, scrap it. Phil adds, I see and hear a few Notts fans crying about a number of scouts at the match. Why, you knew it was coming from day one. I personally hate this league. I just want out, but you were warned. Leigh Brearley. Awkward side, Bromley, in this league. Thought we played well, but we must put more games to bed when on top. But I guess it's easier said than done. Sadly, it's the difference from going up or not. Bob H., we would have been bullied out of the Bromley game not long ago and lost. It's nice to see we are coming to terms with the physicality of this league. And it's kind of like the full needle here, from not right for some people, others very happy with the style of football that we play. More comments. Let's have a look. Link. Here we go. Bob H says Patterson, best keeper we've had since Schmeichel. Tom Stevens, Paul and Leigh, what would you do with Patterson? Would you try and keep him for the season? Link is big. I think people are so unrealistic with the Patterson thing. I'd love him to sign, but Sunderland rate him highly. He's played first team football for them too. I highly doubt they'll sell up. Chris Gosling, we conceded most of these goals in 2 games without Cameron. So lots of debate. A few more as well. Leigh, 4 points, 2 big games, another one to come. Ian, our head coach, has made the point to you in several of the interviews with you about a higher tempo, less passive, which I think is well received. I think all Notts fans can agree on that approach.
Yeah, I thought they were excellent against Stockport. It's probably the best performance of the season for me in terms of the way they passed the ball and controlled the game. I mean, Barnet on the opening day of the season was what I would term a complete 90-minute performance, but it was against a team that was in disarray, really. New players, new manager. But against Stockport, been together, the squad's been together for a while, but I thought they were absolutely excellent to a man from start to finish. Fully deserved winners. Could have won by a much bigger scoreline. And against Bromley, I thought in the second half they played very well and on the balance of play deserved to win the game. Unfortunately, it just happened to be one of Notts' Achilles heels that let them down again, which was the set piece. So obviously the first contact in the box is so important. Didn't win the first header. I thought Patterson made a good save, but unfortunately it was one of those random deflections that took it into the path of Michael Cheek, and then next thing you know, it's in the back of the net. But I thought there was a lot of encouraging signs, and Bromley just seemed to be one of those teams that seemed to be a bit of a bogey team for Notts in terms of never beaten last season, did they? And it it looked that for long spells that they were going to finally break that sort of hoodoo, but unfortunately couldn't get the 3 points across the line. But 4 points, sets it up nicely for a huge game against Grimsby at the weekend.
For the sake of balance, plenty of other comments very praiseworthy of the current approach. Tom Stevens, hopefully after the last two performances, supporters will finally stop moaning about the style of play IB wants. It's possession-based football and supporters need to get used to it. Northants Pie, I'd much rather watch possession football than panic and hoof it. That's anti-football in my opinion. Ian Birchnell, evening all, not a good result, but not a bad result Tuesday. Could have done with the 3 points with a lot of other clubs around us dropping points. Need to be more clinical in front of goal. Chris Gosling, Tom, the moaners will never stop completely. These were still people wanting us to play long balls out from the back to their big centre halves. Certainly quite an emotive point about the style that we play. But I think Ian actually made the point. It's a more aggressive approach at the moment. We spoke with this about Les Brad, who knows a thing or two about scoring goals, about getting opposition defenders to turn. And Ian's picked up on that. Do you sense Ian is a bit more aggressive? What we've done in the last two games, do you think this is going to be more of what we're going to be seeing now?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think the impact of Frank Vincent shouldn't go unmentioned. I think the way he has impacted the midfield since he's come in terms of his movement, I think he's a very clever player in the final third, plays with great intelligence, good movement, likes to link up with the front two. And certainly against Tamworth and against Stockport, he was absolutely brilliant. Maybe the Tuesday night may have been a bit of stretch too far, which is why he was taken off. But I think certainly he has added a great deal of impetus to that midfield. In terms of the attack, I mean, Notts in the games that we've seen, Stockport and Bromley, they have created chances. Stockport, particularly Carl Wootton in the first half against Stockport, could have scored, and he could have done the same against Bromley. Cairo Mitchell had a really good chance at the end of the Bromley game, which he perhaps should have done better with. So we are creating these chances. I think my only criticism would be is that we're not ruthless enough at times. With the quality of chances we are creating, you'd expect to side with the quality that we have to put these games to bed. And I think that was something that Ian mentioned after his press conference on Tuesday, that we are getting these chances, and at some point, we are going to have to start putting these teams to the sword, because, as you say, a 1-0 lead, the opposition is always in the game. So I think that's something that Notts are going to have to work on. But yeah, I've really enjoyed watching him in the last sort of 3 or 4 games. Nice and inventive, easy on the eye. I mean, the goal against Bromley, which I think was retweeted by the National League account, was I don't think Bromley touched the ball, did they, before Carl Cameron opened the scoring? That was a delicious goal. The movement, the patience, played the right passes at the right times, went from slow to quick in the final third, and it paid dividends. And the question for me now is okay, right, we're doing that, and we just need to see that on a more consistent basis and consistently against the better teams.
Yeah, I'll be controversial because you and I disagree, and I suspect quite a lot of our fan base will. They'll probably mostly go with your opinion. I think the reason we haven't got more points is not because we've missed chances, because we haven't kept clean sheets. To be honest with you, I hear the argument that we create loads of chances. We certainly have loads of possession. But you tell me the last team that wins every game 3-0.
Well, there isn't one, is there? I mean,
I'm exaggerating, but the point I'm making is it's kind of, we say, because of the possession that we have got, we should be 2, 3, 4 up. In my experience, football doesn't happen like that, and the teams at the very, very top end are the nasty, grubby ones that do the difficult, awkward things at the right time. And undoubtedly, we have conceded too many late goals. Undoubtedly. And we have been in the lead in a lot of games that really we should see out. If you're going to win the league.
I would agree with that, because promotion winning teams, certainly when you're leading 2-0 against 10 men, as they did against Halifax, don't lose those games. They certainly don't draw them either. If you're a title chasing team or you want to be a promotion contender, those are the games that you should see out and take all 3 points home and say thank you very much. But if I look back at the 2 goals that we conceded against Stockport, Stockport was a rash challenge from Connell. Final stages, really, we should have kept a clean sheet there. And against Bromley, I can't really think of a real save apart from, I think, George Alexander just after half time, where Anthony Patterson was really called upon. So they are defend, but they're just, the scrappy goal, the horrible goals to concede, if you know what I mean. I can't remember the last time we conceded a goal where you're sort of looking at the opposition, taking your hat off to them and saying, do you know what, that was a fantastic goal, nothing we could do about that. It's these horrible, scrappy goals that, they need to try and cut out. But like I say, if you kill the game off, if Notts aren't going to be a team that is defensively solid and isn't going to keep clean sheets, then the best way you can navigate that is by being ruthless at the other end. So I guess it depends on what you prefer. You prefer 2-3-1, 3-2 victories, or a hard-fought slog 1-0. I mean, they went to Yeovil and defended really well that day and won 2-0. So they have got it in them. But again, it's like we keep coming back to, it's being consistently good at it. Stringing 3 or 4 clean sheets together. I don't think it's helped that the defence has changed a fair bit in that time as well. We had Kieran Brennan in, he's gone out, and now Connell's back in, and obviously the goalkeeper's changed as well. But it's definitely something, I'd agree. I think they can be tighter at the back, but equally at the same time, I think they can be better at the other end as well. So it's all about being ruthless in both boxes.
I think Cameron undoubtedly has been a big miss. Lest we forget, the manager was already resting Connell before he got injured, so he wasn't in the starting lineup. And there is a view among some supporters that Patterson is a better bet than Slocum. Personally, I'm not sure, but Patterson has certainly come on in leaps and bounds. But let me just flip it to the other end of the park, because my view is, if we don't improve on a regular basis our defending, then I think it's going to be an incredibly difficult ask to win this league. 17 goals in 12 games. I don't necessarily subscribe to the view that most of the goals come in 2 games. We've leaked goals in periods of matches when we shouldn't really. I think a lot of our fan base don't give Bromley the respect they deserve. Okay.
Good team, Paul.
They're a good team, but we look down the bottom of our nose and go, with only brought 120 fans, and I thought they had some very good players.
Yeah,
I thought we played extremely well, but the fact of the matter remains, we are winning 1-0. We should not get 3 points from that game. We should get 3 points from that game. And I'm a big fan of Bromley. They've won 6 on the spin. I don't think, have we ever managed to do that in the National League since we've been in it?
No, the only run that I can really remember is that run that we had under Neil, which was just after Christmas, wasn't it? Where I think we won 9 out of 11 or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah. I love this one from Kyle Motson. I feel the goals against is a flawed stat. I love that, Kyle. All stats get produced to support someone's argument. And then when a stat doesn't suit somebody's argument, the stat is flawed. Hey, it's a fact. Right?
I tell you what, Tuesday night did prove to us is that there's no right and wrong way to play this game, is there, to get results?
No,
If you look at the contrast in terms of the tactics and how they're set up in both sides, Bromley came resilient, well organised, disciplined, and they're right up there. It's completely at the opposite end of the spectrum to how Ian likes to play in terms of fast, aggressive, good, free-flowing football, but they both get results. So it just goes to show you, sometimes you don't have to be beautiful to watch to be effective.
Yeah. Let's just go back to the other end of the pitch, because a lot of our supporters, and I think you yourself would make an argument for another striker, and it is this mythical fox in the box. Yeah. Well, who would you drop?
Good. It's a good question. I mean, would I like to see another quality centre forward in? Yeah, probably. But I'm just greedy. So, but then you would either drop, obviously Kyle's playing with Ruben as, Ruben's obviously the second striker and just operates in that sort of space just behind him and is given a bit of a free license to roam wherever
I don't see how you can play Ruben in that role if you're playing with two strikers.
Feels, yeah, because obviously he plays that role. It's almost like a number 10 role, but obviously it's a second striker. But it's a really interesting one because I do feel, I look at the competition for the centre forwards and I just don't think it's quite up to the standard you would expect of a Notts County team. If I go back to the first season under Neil, we had Kyle, Wes Thomas and Christian Dennis. Three extremely good centre forwards at this level. Obviously, Christian's gone off and he's playing in the Scottish Premier League now with St Mirren, although I know he's had a few injury problems. And Wes, when he came in, was terrific that season. I think ended at 12, 13 goals. So, but I just don't see, if I compare those three strikers to what we've currently got here, you take Kyle, you've got Kari Mitchell still trying to find his feet, and Eli Sam, I mean, it's not even made the bench in the last two games. So, and I just don't see in the long term a position where he is going to be in a position to be pushing Kyle for his first team place. So in terms of the overall competition, you would say that currently Kyle and Ruben have got those positions locked down. Obviously, Cairo came in for the Tamworth FA Cup game, but I don't know. I think Notts could benefit. I still think there's a couple of gaps in the squad that I would like to see filled, really, and that one is probably another centre forward, and one is a big, imposing central defensive midfield player. But they're perhaps the only two positions where I think that Notts are perhaps lacking. I mean, Ian will counter that by saying, well, his team always scores goals, and that's right. But what happens when somebody gets an injury, a long-term injury? Has he got the depth? Has he got the depth in there to replace those players who are consistently performing well? Like Kyle, I think is a fantastic striker at this level. He's the most complete centre forward, in my opinion. Leads the line brilliantly, works so hard, good with his back to go, can go in behind. The only thing that I would say is that sometimes his one-on-one finishing, which is very good at. He's missed 2 one-on-ones in the last 2 games, which usually a player of his quality you'd back to stick away. So if I'm being greedy, yes, I would like to see another centre forward in, but at the moment, obviously Ruben's on 6 goals, and I think Carl Wotton's up there. Callum's 4, isn't he? Callum Roberts is 4 or 5. Vincent's chipped in with a couple. Yeah, it's a really good debate, and I'm sure plenty of Notts fans. I saw a debate on Twitter saying Christian Dennis would absolutely thrive in this team, and they're probably right. I think he would, because he is, he was a fantastic fox in the box striker. I mean, I think his form towards the back end of the season when we reached the playoffs in the first year was absolutely terrific, wasn't it? I think he ended up dislodging Wes Thomas from the number, starting alongside Carl. He was that good, and yeah, interesting one.
It's very difficult. Like you, I am a big fan of Kyle. But if you are if you're going to go, and someone's talking about having Michael Cheekin with all Leigh Brearley, with all of that, but if you're going to play with an out-and-out front two, it's very, very difficult to get, players that most Notts fans would say are some of the most exciting and entertaining players in this division. We're already in a situation where Cal hasn't started the last two games. So, football is always a blend, isn't it? Football is always a blend. Defending starts from the front and all the rest of it. I think it's very difficult. I think it's very, very difficult. Personally, I think we get enough goals. We get enough goals already. For me, I am one of those that builds from the back, and me and Kyle will have to respectfully disagree. We are bang on halfway with number of goals conceded, and the best teams, the teams that get promoted this year, I guarantee you will have one of the best two defensive records in the division. Look back at Barrow, Harrogate. They, build from the back and nick things.
Well, I think in that first season under Neil, we had the best attack and the best defence, didn't we? When the season was curtailed, I think that the stats showed that defensively we were unbelievable that year, and in attack, I mean, we were scoring goals for fun, weren't we? And we were very, very solid at the back. Connell and Alex Lacey were terrific together as a back four. Obviously had Brins, and obviously Damien McCrory was fit as well. That's interesting.
Anyway, we're going to welcome now Alex from Grimsby, the DN35 podcast. Alex, how are you, my friend?
Evening, gents. Not too bad. You are in the tertiary recording studio. I'm literally in my son's room because Grandma is staying over for half term, so I've been turfed out of our usual abode.
I'm just googling tertiary, just to understand.
It's a high level up this end of the A46.
Well, no, he's just trying to look intelligent. So, anyway, I'm glad we've got a bit of levity, because you could probably see from our message boards as well, there's nothing that gets us going more than a debate about attackers and defenders in the way that Ian sets up his teams and everything. So I'm glad there's a little bit of levity with your tertiary there. Okay, your boys are doing a little bit better than ours at the moment. Our clubs have probably been through not dissimilar paths in recent times. Although you are on your second stint in the National League. Crikey, I bet you wish you thought you got rid of that. But we'll come on in a minute to the Alex May, Alec Capicania, where I shall give you one or two interesting stories. And you don't know how lucky you were, Alex, because you could have had our former chairman and owner as chief executive, right? Okay,
yeah,
which you would have had fun. So, firstly, second stint, National League. What's it been like having to drop back down again?
It's been pretty easy so far. But no. It's, do you know what? The second time round, it's not as hard as it was. You do have that. We got obviously non-league on Tuesday night at Wealdstone, and for a lot of clubs who are down here for the first time, it takes a while to get over that. We had to deal with it pretty quickly on our first time round when we got battered 5-0 by Braintree at home. That was a nice little bump.
Cowley's in charge at Braintree then?
I don't think so, no. We usually got the better of them. They're not that good. We usually it took a while, but this time round I think that especially the fan base and is more aware of what's going to happen. And given the new ownership and such, and I'm sure we'll discuss it in a while, it's been a little bit easier. So the defeat to Wealdstone and to Bromley has been more of a case of this stuff happens. You're gonna have 85% of possession, and then all of a sudden they're gonna hammer it in from a free kick, and then some atrocious refereeing will get involved and the like. And it's just how it is. And it's nice to have a game where we're going to have at Blundell Park where there's going to be more than 10 away fans, which will be lovely. And it'll feel almost, like normal. All we need is a terrible betting advert along the side of the pitch to make it feel real football-y.
It's exactly what a lot of our fan base said about the Stockport game last Saturday. It was kind of almost, it was back to a football league. We've kind of suspended our participation in the National League for a couple of hours, you know, and clearly it is going to be absolutely like that. From what you're saying, have you kind of got over your superiority complex? Because I do think we at Notts find this difficult, you know?
Yeah, I think so. There'll be some that always struggle, but we kind of take it. You take it in your stride when you kind of get used to it. We were down here for a while, obviously, sort of 6 or so years the first time round, and you do take it in your stride. Maybe come back to us in a couple of years and see how we're taking it. I mean, I don't know what I'd look like if I was a Wrexham half decades or wherever they've been down here now. But it'd be we seem to be enjoying, like, oh, Wilston will be great, good away day. It just seems that the National League is just full of a load of clubs along metropolitan land, or whatever they called it, in the middle of a housing estate where you lose 2-0 on a 4G pitch, and then you go home and have to travel 4.5 hours back up north.
Yeah. Well, the good news for our local reporter, Mr. Curtis, is he's already halfway there. He's Lincoln based.
I know, yeah.
Looking forward to getting some good fish and chips, Leigh, on Saturday.
No, I have many fond memories. Obviously, I used to cover Lincoln, so I'd been to Blundell Park many times over the years. Very, very difficult place to go, and I think my last two visits were Notts, ended up being quite convincing defeats in the end. I remember it was one of Kevin Nolan's first games in charge in the league, and they got battered that night, and then Harry Kuehl, I think, took over, and I think that was one of his early away games, and we got absolutely mullered there as well. So don't really have too many fond reporting memories of Grimsby away. I've got to be honest. Remember one night going to watch Lincoln or cover Lincoln in the playoffs. I can't remember. Ben Futcher had actually turned coat. He'd left Lincoln and joined Grimsby later on in his career. I think he ended up scoring that night, and
it's not like Lincoln to lose in a playoff.
Well, it was that. It was obviously that. It was that sort of row where they lost about 5 in succession.
Hang on. Can either of us really take the mick out of Lincoln City at the moment?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's be honest, all right?
Absolutely.
Really?
I mean,
really?
Yeah. I mean, we have to. It's for our own sanity. The only thing I'd say is our podcast is still blocked by their club, which I find quite funny.
Is it and friendly on this one, Alex. I think you've got edge to you.
No.
I didn't know that.
It was, but it's nice, and we certainly both clubs should be looking to emulate Lincoln in terms of how they move forward. And as a Lincoln fan, I mean, 12th in League One is obviously something we'd all love to. The change in the fan ownership and the way that the crowds have come in is. And that's really probably been understated for a lot of from a lot of clubs around here and elsewhere. That's the sort of model that other clubs need to follow to be sustainable, because we can certainly look around us in this league and see clubs that will, in 5 to 10 years, be sort of around shaking a bucket trying to save themselves.
Okay, so if you look, I'm going to come on to Alex May and all the shenanigans.
Yeah.
Okay, some good stories there. Leigh knows some of them.
Good, I'm glad.
But if you just sort of take us through the past 4 or 5 months, John Fenty, you got new ownership. I believe the trust is a minority shareholder in that. You got Paul Hurst in. It didn't work at the end of last season. You weren't able to stay up, but I'm guessing you've had a good summer and things now. You are happy with new ownership. Well, you're probably happy the moment they took over, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we were probably a mid-table League Two team from around February, March time. What really killed us off was that the games we needed to win came very early in Paul Hurst's tenure in January. So we played those who were around us, and then afterwards, I don't think we've lost consecutive games now since March. Okay. Yeah, which is pretty good. And we were, as you were talking, just as you were talking about a moment ago, building from the back, we were really hard to beat. We drew so many games that really sort of put the final nail in the coffin. But this takeover was sort of almost 12 to 18 months in the making. there was a lots of murmurings in the background, as you guys are all well aware of sort of the mess that they can get into. But the second the only reason Paul Hurst is here is because he was well assured that those guys were on the way out. That was the only reason he would come back, and I'm so glad he did.
Take relegation? How did your fan base take relegation?
Do you know what? Really well. You know that meme that you've got of the guy like first and second with the medal, and the guy in third place is spraying champagne everywhere, flipping the bird. That's kind of how we felt. And I said, and I got a little bit of stick at the time, like I would happily take non-league if it meant that we got our owners out, because it was just one of these things that we needed to move. We needed to do something, because we're just circling the race. Like so many clubs in the bottom of League Two, your Scunthorpes at the moment, and are like they're just waiting to drop. And the second that they fall in that, it'll take a while for them to come back up again.
Yeah, Oldham are another one, aren't they? I think struggling big time. Yeah,
and I wouldn't be surprised if it seems Bradford are almost always in just a sort of bad seasons away from doing the same at times. But
yeah,
you never know.
Right. Leigh knows some of this. Alex May cropped up on the radar, didn't he, at Grimsby? So I'll explain. So I was a director for a relatively short period of time. And when our previous owner and we were dropping out the league, Alan put the club up for sale. And I remember him saying to me, I'm not sure if I was still on the board at this time or not. He said, I've got a new buyer. I said, who is it? So he said, Alex May. I said, oh, right, okay. I'll do a bit of homework. And you find out that Alex May had tried to buy Chesterfield, who were also just about to drop out of the league the previous year. And instantly your antenna pricks up, doesn't it? You know, why do you want to buy a club dropping out of the league unless you're a fan, which clearly he wasn't. I spoke to someone at Chesterfield. Guy said, look, you know, no money. It was never going to happen. We just got rid of him. So I remember telling Alan this. No. He's loaded. Millions. Yeah, he's definitely buying the club. He's definitely buying the club. And there was a few other cohorts. Tony Kenworthy, ex-Sheffield United midfielder. And there was a few others. And they were all involved in this alleged consortium that was going to buy Notts. And this is the bit of the story that no one knows really. You know, Notts County should always be forever grateful to an unnamed employee who's no longer with the club now, who rang me up one day and said, Paul, I don't know whether you can do anything about this. He said, I've got a cheque coming from Alex May. And I said, I got a lot of noughts on it. She says, well, no, it's not for very much. She says, but it doesn't say Alex May on the cheque. I said, okay. She says, it says Alec Capicania. I said, oh, right. And she says, I've just Googled it and he's been in court. I says, oh, okay. So I then starts Googling it and doing a bit of research. So Alec Capicania is a convicted fraudster sentenced to 6 months prison. I better choose my words carefully, for being part of a gang who preyed on elderly and infirm people and got them to swap the deeds of the house over and bank the cash in an alleged fraud worth between £3.5 million and £6 million. Some crikey. So I definitely wasn't on the board by this time. So I rang Alan and said, right, Alan, you need to bin this guy off, right? He's a convicted fraudster. No, he's not. No, he's a genuine businessman. Alan, he's not. I'll send you this. So I send him all this stuff. No. That's not him, because there was a photo. Yeah, not him. It's not him. Different bloke, real bloke, you know. And so I thought, well, I know it's him. So given I work in sport and public relations and everything, I put a few calls into some of my journalistic friends, and I worked for about a month with the Daily Mirror. It's a bit hot to handle for Leigh, because a local paper, you have to be a bit careful, don't you? These are not actually easy things to prove. And so the Mirror probably spent the best part of a month getting photos of him at a game and all the rest of it, putting the allegations to him. Yeah. When the Mirror put it to him that he was really Alec Capicania, he denied it. He said, no, I'm Alex May. Right. Okay. So you still haven't really got the nailed down proof. And there was another guy, a lawyer called Colin Dodd, who eventually admitted it and said everyone deserves a second chance. I went to the FA. I've got to say, I was disappointed with the FA. FA didn't seem really to want to know too much about it. And I said, look, this guy's a convicted fraudster. He's tried to buy Chesterfield. He's trying to buy Notts County. You need to be doing something about it. And, you know, chicken's coming home to roost. I said, if you don't buy Notts County, he'll go and try and buy another club. I said, clearly, this is, you know, he wants to buy a club and use it for whatever purposes. So the FA, right, okay, we'll investigate. Every week, Alex May was supposedly going to hand over about 3 million quid to Alan to buy the club every Friday. Every Friday came and passed. It never happened. And after about a month, the Mirror got enough evidence, splashed it in the Daily Mirror. Big story, Alec Capincagna, photo, fraudster trying to buy world's oldest football club. You'd think at that point, wouldn't you, that Alan Hardy, our owner, would say, enough is enough. No, it's not true. He has assured me it's not him. Right? So
put the phone down, Alan. Stop getting on social media where you wang out.
So carries on. Do you remember this, Leigh? You remember this?
I remember it as clear as a bell. I mean, it was such a stressful time as well, really, because there was all this stuff. I mean, I remember days where there weren't any days off. I mean, it was things. The phone would go at 10 o'clock at night, and things would be happening. And I mean, it was quite abundantly clear that I think I wrote a piece. In fact, the day of that story coming out in the Mirror, because obviously I was aware that it was coming out.
Yes,
but you know, there was no point at that stage carrying on the talks any further.
Yeah,
because you know what Alex's crime had been, or what he'd been sentenced for, you know, involved a section of, you know, what message would that have sent out to the fan base, you know, welcoming somebody like that to the football game? It just should never have ever got that far. But
and it makes his involvement with us even more ludicrous that he'd gone through this process.
Yeah,
and was back at it.
Right, Alex, let me come on. Then you can take up the story from your end.
Yeah, sure.
It actually got even more bizarre when it found out he was, inverted commas, in business partner is the wrong phrase, but certainly in cahoots with John Benty on the council.
Oh no, definitely business partners. They set up a company.
Hang on. So it's come out in the Mirror. Just before it had come out in the Mirror, I'd spoken to our local council because I was aware, and this is how it all works, you see. So when someone looks to try and buy a football club, it's basically a form of emotional blackmail to secure a planning development in and around the vicinity of the football ground, because you say you're the local football club owners, we need to develop that plot of land, this plot of land, otherwise the club is going to go under, and you, the city council, it's your fault. That's by and large how it always works. So I spoke to the city council. Surprise, surprise, Alex May had already had a series of meetings with the council outlining his plans and wanted to develop a whole raft of land in and around Notts County's ground. Yeah. So I explained to the council, clearly they were not going to deal with a convicted fraudster. So they pulled the plug. So anyway, we were fortunate enough to get two Danish brothers, Alexander and Christoph Reitz, and I think, like yourself, get very good owners. Okay. So now we fast forward to Grimsby a few months later.
Yeah, and I mean, Leigh might have heard more.
Yeah, they registered a company vehicle, Meadow Lane something or other. They literally just changed the name to Blundell Park or something. Yeah, clearly, it was going to put two and two together.
I think it was Town Centre Living Limited, and yeah.
So Alex May, off he goes with the same group trying to buy Grimsby, and Alan rang me up bit before Christmas, and he says, "Oh, Paul," he said, "I'm going to become the chief executive of a football league club." I says, "Really?" He says, "Yes, yes, it's all done. It's all done. I spoke to Kevin Nolan. Kevin's going to become the manager, and we're going up to Grimsby tomorrow." I said, "Are you really?" And and so I said to him, I said, well, you must be mad. And I says, you don't need to tell me who the owners are. I already knew. Yeah. I said, don't you tell me the owners? I said, you must be mad. Absolutely. Don't be so stupid. He said, no. He said, it's all done. Of course, nothing happened, but I was aware at that point of Alex May / Alec Capincanya's involvement. So John Elsom, who was a director at Grimsby, used to be my chairman at Leicester City. So I rang John up and I said, right, John Fenty, because I thought at that point in time I was not aware that John Fenty and Alex May were close. So I spoke to John Elsom and I said, look, you need to get a message to John Fenty to tell him this guy is bad news. Yeah, do not touch him with a barge pole. So John passed the message on, came back to me. John Fenty's aware of it. Yes, he knows all about his past. Now, I interpreted that as meaning he won't touch it with a barge pole. Yeah, but of course, clearly, John Fenty did know all about the past, but was taking a slightly different tack. So tell me what happened next at Grimsby. So
we were relatively lucky in that aspect. So from my side of things, an unknown, a scout I know of, but I won't name them as they are a hero, said, look, because the way the ground was at the time with COVID, the directors sit the opposite side of the ground to where everybody else is press and the like. They're in the big old metal thing. And they go, look, the guy over there is Alex May. He's bad news. He's the guy that tried to buy Notts County, etc. The local paper were well aware of it, as were the BBC Radio and also a couple of other people as well. And we were lucky enough to be brought in going, look, don't say a word, because there are essentially a sting operation is underway. There are cameramen and there are photographers outside Blundell Park's Findus stand ready to capture his image. I was always under the impression John Fenty is a terrible owner. You can see where we are. We started in the Championship when he took over. We're now down here for the second time. I always assumed he was a well-meaning idiot, but
just be careful. I don't want him suing me. You know, bung a few alleged in and try to be objective. Yeah. Go on.
No, don't worry. That's my opinion. He's a well-meaning idiot, but he's not. It then came out that it was him. Then there was around 55 statements, because at the same time there were these other owners, Jason Stockwood, Andrew Pettit, and at the time someone called Tom Schutz, who was a land developer, who were trying to buy the club. We were essentially being told time and time again, these guys don't have a proverbial pot to buy this club, etc., etc. And then it came out that he was going to be Alex May was going to be an investor. He wasn't going to buy the club. He was going to be an investor. He was going to put in well over £1 million worth of shares, which would essentially have made him de facto owner, but obviously couldn't be a board member because he had a criminal conviction. Yeah. Though that doesn't necessarily always is never usually a problem for the FA. And it would have meant that he would have essentially owned the club, though wouldn't have been on the board. It came out in the wash. Ian Holloway at the same time was, I don't know if you know this at the time, but when he came in, one of the odd caveats with it was he was going to invest £100,000 into the club.
Do remember that? Yeah.
It never happened. He never invested a penny, and he very swiftly left the club after this came out in the wash, because it was all around Christmas time this time last year, and he never invested a penny and would only ever work with John Fenty. He left because he didn't like the idea that the others had used a player, and the name eludes me, who'd asked him, look, because you've been saying you don't want to work with us, is that true? Because we're trying to buy the club, we want to know what the state of play would be on the pitch. And he didn't like them approaching him behind the club's back, and left as well. So there are some connections as to why Holloway left at the same time too.
How did it? Because I think the real and there are remarkably similar parallels with Notts, Grimsby, and for that matter, many other clubs. And we'll get Leigh's thoughts on this in a minute. How did it come out? Because this was the real blockbuster one, wasn't it? That Alex May was in, some form of partnership developing with John Fenty, who was vice chairman of the council or something. Because that kind of did it for him, didn't it, when that came out?
Yeah, and at the same time, John Fenty was the deputy councillor for North East Lincolnshire, and was in charge of planning and development for the town.
Yes.
All coincidental, of course, but it meant that him and Alec, who had set up this company, it came about simply down to the fact. I mean, I wasn't the only one that used to religiously search his business activity, because at the same time, at the moment, he has problems with HMRC, and you can go to God Almighty to have a look and see where he is. But he essentially owes Inland Revenue roughly $1 million.
Well,
yeah.
Allegedly.
No, definitely owns it. Definitely owns it.
Hang on, I don't want to. All right. But what I mean, if that was, and let's just pause for 1 minute. We'll come to the final bit. So, Leigh,
of course.
I mean, Notts was bad enough, with a convicted fraudster. But then to find out he's in cahoots with the owner at another football club that's involved in planning just shows you what goes on in the background of professional football in this country. And I think also tells you the good job that you and other guys in local media, regional, what good jobs you as journalists do, because it's only by shining a torch on these activities that we find out the truth.
Yeah, and what worries me, if you look at something like Bury, for instance, I don't recall. I mean, we splashed a lot on Notts during that whole time, with a lot of front pages, a lot of back pages. I mean, I was doing inside spreads at the front end of the paper, which it did need to have a light shine on it. But you see these other circumstances with other football clubs, such as Bury, for instance, where didn't seem to get the same level of coverage.
Too late, wasn't it?
And then by the time they had got the coverage, it was too late. It was everything had been so far down the road that the club couldn't be saved. I think it was the same with Macclesfield in that instance. Never really got enough pressure in the local media to shine a light on what was going on. And then, of course, the story comes out that they can't be rescued. Too late, already gone. That's why I think local national media is so important. And certainly at the lower end of the football league and non-league, because everybody knows what's going on in the Premier League, because the national leagues, the national papers and national media obviously cover it day by day. So everyone knows what's going on at Newcastle. Everyone knows what's going on behind the scenes at Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea. Those clubs are well covered. But the lower you go down and the less interest there is, the more aspects and the more avenues there are for people who want to own football clubs can sneak in through the back door, because there just isn't the same level. They don't have the same level of spotlight. So, of course, during that whole time in Notts County, it was absolutely vital with the information we were getting. And, there was so many people that I think the football club owe a great deal of debt to for literally picking up the phone, ringing the paper or ringing the radio and saying, "Are you aware of this? I found this out." And I imagine it would be the same for Grimsby. I know James Finlater, wasn't it? Was the Grimsby writer, did a fantastic job of the Alex May stuff there. So, but it just goes to show you how crucial that people, can rely on their local paper to get these stories out there, because once it's out there, pressure then certainly gets applied. Because the way that these individuals want to work is they want to get in through the back door with a minimum of fuss.
Yeah, spot on.
Absolutely. And it was one of these things we wouldn't have been told until it was probably too late.
Yeah.
And we were so lucky that there was another consortium interested in buying the club at the same time. If we didn't have that, I don't really know where we would have gone, because it just laid itself down so perfectly that John Fenty needed money, he needed to do something, and he had to take it. And he's now come out of it he's lost his position in the council, which, being the local, as you were talking about very quite rightly, and something that I struggle to get over on our podcast, is that the amount of leverage being a part of your community asset that the football club gives you in management meetings, in leverage, in development and anything like that is off the scale. That's what my job is throughout the year. I work for a trade association, and that advantage is huge. And that's what these people are after, as well as opportunities in financial gain as well.
For the last 10 minutes of the show, because I know Leigh's got to make a move, Alex, what sort of welcome are we going to get on Saturday? It's probably a good time to play us. Someone asked a while ago, our two strikers are
concern. McAtee is most likely not going to play, which is a massive bonus for you guys. He's having a scan this afternoon, and we haven't seen the outlook. He damaged his knee after a relatively bad challenge at Wealdstone. Grant Taylor is also pretty injured, and after that, we're pretty light up front. We've got Lionel John Lewis, who is absolutely brilliant.
I know Lenny. Good lad, Lenny.
Yeah,
he's obviously Lincoln came through the ranks at Lincoln. He's a good lad.
Yeah. We can't hold it against him, but he saw the light. He's pretty good with that. But we're going to be tough to break down. So you don't expect to score more than one, and expect a packed house. It's sold out in the home end. There are no tickets left, and hopefully Notts County can fill the away end as well, because it's not too long a journey. So hopefully it'll be a rammed place and a great advert for non-league.
From what you're saying, Paul is building from the back. Yeah.
Yeah, I never expected him, given the mess this league is this year with people throwing money left, right, and centre. I expected playoffs to be the aim. I never expected this, and the worry is now we've got something that we might look back on this in sort of November time, going, oh, that was why? How did we cock that up? But it's been a great start. So hopefully it shall continue. The problem we have is we just don't have the strength in depth that say that the money clubs in this league do. We don't have a Madden or a like to come in off the back. We're going to be worried. He was looking at a striker, but he couldn't. He said in the interview this afternoon he couldn't really justify it to himself to bring him in because he's not the quality he wants. And why would he? He might as well give a young lad a chance, which he'll probably do in Edwin Essel or alike, but don't expect us to start as we have done in the last few games.
Leigh, it's been a tough week, but a successful one so far. 4 points from Stockport and Bromley. What do you expect Saturday?
I think it will be as what I can recall many Grimsby games in the past. I think it'll be high intensity, in your face, be a good atmosphere. I think the atmosphere that the Grimsby fans generate is different class. The fans are on top of the pitch, and I think for Notts, they're going to have to master that pretty quickly, I think. And I know Alex was saying they've got a couple of strikers out, but when Blundell Park is rocking, it can be pretty formidable. It's the same as Meadow Lane, really. The fans make such a difference. I think it's a case of whether Notts can make that game and play it on their own terms. What I do like about this Notts team is if they can get the game on their own terms, they've got a chance of beating anybody in this league. They've proven that. I think that's the challenge for them is making sure they start well, control the game, be patient, don't try and get caught up in the emotion as we've seen them doing in some games in the past, like Halifax away, for etc. Because when they tend to do that, and their shape and their organisation just tends to go a little bit awry. So I think the first 10 to 15 minutes of that game will be absolutely crucial, because I think Grimsby will come straight out of the blocks, big crowd behind them, and they'll try and get an early initiative. But I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a fantastic game. And Paul Hurst, what a great manager. I think he's done a wonderful job. He's been out this league before, knows what it's all about. And then you've got Ian Birchnell just starting his coaching career in England. It's a great subplot. The master and the apprentice, so to speak. So I think that's going to be. It's going to be a cracking game. I'm really looking forward to it. Probably the biggest game in the division this year, to be fair.
Gazing into your tactical crystal ball, Alex, Notts will play a style of possession-based football you probably won't have seen in this division. We have the two centre halves on the edge of the 6-yard box, goalkeeper passing it out, bit like Premier League. Do you think Paul will look to high press? Or is the way he plays at home, does he look to assert, boss the game from minute one or not?
We sounds like we play relatively similar styles. So we certainly play out from the back and we try to keep hold of the ball. We've got two very accomplished centre backs. Luke Waterfall has had an incredible turnaround. He was not everybody's number one choice, but he has been phenomenal this season. We've got a young lad, Riley Towler, on loan from Bristol City, who is phenomenal and is so accomplished at the back. We'll try and keep the ball and we'll try and push it up. We will press when we lose the ball quite quickly, but after that, we will only take a couple of moments, then drop back and take it from there. We've got Enrico Souza and Wilbur Parga on the wings, essentially 2 Jack Leicesters. So expect to concede a penalty or 2. Whether or not we can actually convert them is the problem we're having at the moment. So that's probably the main issue. What you'll probably find is Lenny will be on his own. The hope you've got is trying to isolate him, which is exactly what Wealdstone did. So if you find that our 2 wingers are sort of too far away from him, then you'll probably have an opportunity to take advantage. But if we can get them there, and if Harry Clifton can get back involved in it, young lad, local lad, who's been phenomenal as well, I'd like to think that we can sort of make sure we don't get back-to-back defeats for the first time since March.
Who's the best team you've played so far this season?
Oh, good question. Wrexham weren't much. Stockport weren't much. Honestly, Woking. Woking. Yeah, Bromley beat us because we'd never played on a 4G pitch before, and the weather turned biblical. So the wind blew. It was one of those where our keeper kicked it and for a goal kick, and it ended up behind him.
Oh,
kept shooting from the edge of the area. And so they got 3 goals in that half. And but Woking was so good, and they're freaks. They're all 9'11". I've never seen anything like it. I mean, we're used to it down here, but they look like the team from Space Jam. I've never seen. They were phenomenal, and they were quick, and they hassled us, and they were the best team we've played this season.
Yeah, I think. I mean, Woking came to Notts and won 4-1. But I felt that was a game that Notts chucked away rather than
because that was quite disparaging comments from Birchall, wasn't it?
It was basically they won the game in the last 11 minutes, but it was a game really up until that point. You know, Notts had never really looked in any danger, and then it just all fell apart. But in terms of their organisation, their discipline, and just really good at what they do, I'd have to say Bromley. I think they've got all the right parts in all the right places. Big, strong, organised, long throw. You know, good at set pieces. Couple of decent wingers. Got a good centre forward, Michael Cheek. I think they are the best team. So I mean, this could obviously change throughout the course of the season. But
what were they like? What were they like with you? They were so weird with us. Every goal, because at Bromley, obviously their end is next to where the away fans are in a lovely sort of, cow terrace with no roof. And every goal they scored, they made a point of running over to us. There was 700 or so of us there in the rain, soaked to death, to scream in front of us. Their bench all came over as well, just to kick off every 3 goals. I've never seen anything like it. Now, I came out of it and I went to the stewards going, you must be well annoyed. Like they've just made your job so hard. They go, they're going to be having words. So they've definitely got the outhouses award for this season.
Yeah, I think they love it, don't they? I think they love it a little bit. Apparently on Tuesday night, Andy Woodman was in the 4th official's ear straight away from the first minute. So I kind of think they've got this kind of like Wimbledon spirit going on, even though they've got a lot. They've got some incredibly talented players. It's almost like it's us against the world type thing. Nothing. We're little old Bromley. We'll go and give it a right good show. We'll show them how big and strong we are. We'll do the long throws. We'll get the free kicks and put them under pressure. You don't need to be beautiful to get out this league.
But be quick.
That's what I think they're all about, and they thrive off that. But I'd have to say they're very good at it. They are very, very good at it.
I assume he adds at the end, but be quick because a 5-a-side team have booked the pitch at 10.
See, I don't mind that, Alex. I don't mind.
I don't mind
it. Dish it, right? We as fans dish it, okay? So why shouldn't players be allowed to give it back?
Well, I guess Andy Woodman especially has history with us because it's the first time I've seen him one past him, but it was strange. If you're 700 of you there on a Tuesday night and the rain was biblical, and there's no roof, and you don't need that. Like a little bit of respect doesn't go, but it goes both ways.
Okay, I'm devil's advocate. Do you give Bromley any respect?
Not now. But as a club, this is the thing, because we've been down here, we don't go to clubs, I don't think, expecting anything. We went to Wealdstone on Tuesday. I absolutely loved it. Incredible fans. It was a stadium with a roof, so other clubs can take note. It was really friendly stewarding, really friendly policing, really friendly, because the fans are here, aren't they? They're next to you. And they were lovely. They were great laugh when they scored their free goal. That's the first time he's done that. We've gone bust with the amount of times he's kicked the ball over the ground. So yeah, I don't know if we've probably paid for their players for the next 6 months. So a little bit of respect is pretty nice.
Yeah.
But enjoy the 3 points.
It's entertainment. I mean, I suspect you say why they like that, and I think Leigh mentioned it as well. The successful teams largely embody the characteristics of the manager, don't they? So if the manager's a hard worker or whatever, then they're a hard working team. If the manager is in your face, the chances are the 11 players will be in your face. And I think what you would have to say about Andy Woodman, and I don't know the stats, but since he's took over at Bromley, with the possible exception of James Rowe, his wins to losses ratio must be the best in the league. Must be. Must be. They finished well last season. They've got 2 games in hand, haven't they, this season? It must be about the best wins to losses ratio. And to an extent, you can...
There's one manager I can think of at the moment.
Yeah, but it can be critical, but it's a formula that on the face of it will put you not too far away, won't it? Would you have Michael Cheek as centre forward for Grimsby?
No.
Really?
No, well, we're quite lucky, aren't we? We've got two pretty. I mean, I'll probably take him right now because everyone else is in the.
How goals has Michael Cheek got?
Is in the physio's room.
How's your top goal scorer got?
That's John McAtee. He's got 6, I think.
How many's Michael Cheek got, Leigh?
I have no idea without looking it up.
I think it's nearly double figures.
It wouldn't surprise me.
I like the
10. He's got 10.
He's on 10.
He's
on 10. McAtee's on 6. Ryan Taylor's on 5. I'm all right, thanks.
Would you take the centre half, Bush? Or he played left back as well, don't he?
No, who would I take? Yesterday, Effie Young from Woking. They were brilliant.
They were useless for us.
Which one? Effie Young?
Effie Young, yeah.
Yeah, well, we share quite a few, don't we? Dennis as well.
I thought Innie Effie Young. I think Woking style. It's all about having parts in the right places and styles suit certain players. Suit certain players. We were a patient passing team who liked to move the ball through the thirds, whereas Innie Effie Young had basically made his name on being this powerful, robust, charge through your centre forward, get the ball up to him. He'll defend with his back to goal. He'll get at you. He'll be big and nasty and physical. He isn't a patient passing. You couldn't play the ball. He's going to turn on a sixpence, and that you have to play to his strengths. And I think that's what Woking have done. The same with Tavon Campbell. Who's been brilliant for them as well. But Innie, I think if you
horses for courses, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if Innie is certainly one of those players. If you play to his strengths, you will get the best out of him, but we just never saw that.
I'll tell you, 10 minutes to go against Wealdstone, I'd have loved to have wheeled him on, because by then, if you're 1-0 down, the sort of the game plan tends to go out the window, doesn't it? And you're begging for Akin Fenwer or someone who's 11'6" to just stand on the far post at every corner, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys, I know you've got to get away, Leigh. Alex, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure,
setting the scene at Blundell Park. Are we still going to be going to Blundell Park? Well, I hope we're not. We'll both get up. But because there's always talk of a new ground at Grimsby, isn't there? But is it still a bit of a pipe dream or not?
Our owners are wonderful, and they've been on our podcast a couple of times, and it's a conversation that's come up. And he said, "Look, we've got to fill Blundell Park first before we even start considering moving to grounds."
You filled it this Saturday.
Yeah, that's the only problem. We've given him that problem a little bit too much quicker than he thought we would have to. I think it will come up because there is a nice piece of land right in the centre of town on Freeman Street, which is currently available, and the council are quite happy for us to have it. So I think that conversation will come up quicker. But I wouldn't expect to be going anywhere else for the next 30 years. Just how it's been going. Get used to Blunder Park. Enjoy the fish and chips. There is a fan zone.
Chip shop still there? Yeah.
Which one?
On the corner, the fish and chip shop.
Don't go there. Don't go there. What are you doing to yourselves, you poor men? You want to get into Cleethorpes early. So if you're going to have a restaurant one, you go to Steele's. So if you're happy to have a sit down, you get
very good. Yeah.
If you wanna have some as you walk, go to Ernie Beckett's, which is across the road from Steele's. They do the best takeout chips. Then walk along the seafront if it's nice enough. You can walk all the way down the promenade and then up over the bridge.
Force Nightingale whipping off the North Sea on that brown. It's always brown, the sea there, isn't it? It's never blue. It's brown.
It's slightly browner now, yeah, and then there's a fan zone which opens at about 12:30. That's got local beer in and stuff, so that's well worth an opportunity as well. So the food has changed, but I don't know if you guys will have that in the away end, but it's a hell of a lot nicer experience than it used to be. No eyelid burgers and the like.
We look forward to it. Alex, thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Ben.
Leigh, thank you very much indeed. Let battle commence on Saturday at 3:00, and we'll see where we both are.
See you.
Cheers.